Let's take advantage of the fact that very few people right now know the Joba system to win a lot of games. It's a system that is very, very easy to use, and it also hides some really impressive tricks. So don't worry if you don't play the queen's pawn, because you'll simply have to learn 3 or 4 moves to be able to use this system in your games. So get ready to see one of the best systems I've brought to this channel. We explained it a bit once and you liked it a lot, so let's go for it. When we play the queen's pawn, there are two popular responses. The first, that they also respond with the queen's pawn, and the other, that they move their knight to f6. These are the two most popular moves against the queen's pawn. We, against all odds, are going to play against both, knight c3. Why do I say against all odds? Because here, the most used moves are either knight f3 or c4, maybe even e3. But knight c3 is not a very common move, but it's a move that allows us to play this system. What are we threatening? Well, now we're supporting the e4 square. So we're threatening this great break to take the whole center for ourselves and be able to develop our pieces comfortably. That's why they must now try to fight for the center with the move knight f6. What we want to do is play bishop f4. This is the Jobava system. You simply have to memorize these 3 moves: d4, knight c3, and bishop f4. And from here on, everything goes smoothly. A very, very common mistake that players who don't know this system make here is knight c6. And here they've practically already lost the game. Yes, yes, as you hear it, in just 3 moves, they've already lost the game. Do you see that it's like an Italian, but on the queen side? The Italian is played with this knight on f3 and this bishop on c4. Well, now it's even better than the Italian for carrying out the typical fried liver attack. But here, it's much more effective than on the king side. We're attacking the c7 square with the knight and bishop, and this can't be stopped anymore. I just can't believe it. How many games have I won already just with this? How can they try? I say try because you can't try to stop this c7 square, right? With the knight. Well, they could try to play e5, so that the only thing we have to do is capture this pawn with the bishop. It's true, now they can capture it with the knight, but absolutely nothing happens because look at how it continues. You're gonna love it. Knight takes bishop is the only way they have to try to eliminate one of these 2 pieces. Otherwise, we'll simply capture this pawn with check. We take the rook, right? We simply recapture this knight so that we threaten their knight, and we don't care where it goes. We don't care if it goes back to d7, to e4, or if it goes to g4. Doesn't matter to us. For example, let's say it goes to e4. Well, we're simply going to always continue with this incredible move. That's going to give our opponents goosebumps. Queen takes d5, a queen sacrifice for just a pawn. I'm sure many of you already see why. Right now, we're up 2 pawns, but even if they capture our queen, we get it back very easily with the move knight takes c7, checking the king, attacking the rook, attacking the queen, and when the king moves, we simply win the queen back. It's the only way they have to stop our entry. And that way, we've ended up with a 3 pawn advantage. And besides, the opponent's king can no longer castle. In other words, an extremely strong advantage. What I like most about this system is how easy it is to win. See, for example, what happens if instead of d5, they play knight f6 first? We, as I told you, are going to do the same thing, knight c3. That's our plan for what? To threaten playing e4 and taking the whole center, being able to develop both bishops perfectly. That would be spectacular for us, but it's logical. They can and should avoid it with d5. These 2 pieces defend the e4 advance. Very well, how are we going to continue? Well, this system is so simple that we're going to continue in the same way. Now, if they play knight c6, we've already seen that it's a huge mistake. We come with the knight to b5, and the pressure on the c7 spot becomes impossible to defend. But then again, they often know that knight c6 is a serious error, right? And they play, for example, the move e6. I run into this all the time. It's a much more correct move. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to continue with our traditional moves. E3 to be able to develop our bishop, we can develop the knight, castle, and in such a way that we're saying, let's see if you mess up again. And if you play knight c6, I'll do the same thing as before. Mind you, the most common thing is that they don't play knight c6. But if they do, here we go, right? Why do I say that the most common thing isn't for them to play knight c6? Because normally in the queen's pawn, this c pawn is responsible for moving to c5 to try to attack the white piece's pawn center. Those of you who've been playing chess a bit longer already know that black always plays c5 here. So we're gonna attack again in a brutal way. Knight b5 is gonna be our best ally in this system. While it's true we haven't won immediately, our pressure will be so hard to defend that they have to play super precisely. Why don't I say, now that we win completely in a direct way with this knight over here? Because since the knight on b8 hasn't developed, it can now go to a6 so that it defends the a7 square, and we're going to play c3 and see something. Right now, we're attacking this point. Therefore, the knight on a6 cannot move. It's in a terrible situation. Plus, it blocks the pawn that wants to kick out this knight. So this is like a London system, right? A London system, but with a knight that's 1,000 times better. This knight on b5 is attacking this square, this square. Permanent pressure. The bishop can't be developed in such a way that we have our opponent cornered. And as if that weren't enough, this knight can't be kicked out. The only way they have to kick out this knight is what? Bishop d7, threatening it. It's that simple. What are we going to do? Well, we're simply going to play a 4. A tremendously strong move. It's true, they can eliminate our knight. If they don't eliminate it, well, we can keep up the pressure throughout the game because it's the only way they have to remove the pressure. And when they capture, we're going to recapture with the bishop. We give a check. As you can see, blocking with the queen would be a tremendously serious mistake, just like moving the king. The only feasible move is to block with the knight. But well, here it seems that black isn't doing so bad either, right? But yes, they are doing tremendously bad. We're going to play knight f3. The difference between white and black is that white has an attack plan and can move their pieces wherever they want with great ease. Then black can move. The knight is pinned. This knight is in a super bad situation. Mind you, if I ask you what the most used move in the position is, I'm sure many of you are thinking of the same one. Knight c7. This knight is doing terrible. It places itself on a good square and also attacks the bishop on b5. This might seem like a very good move, and in fact, it's the most used move in this position, but here we can already win immediately. Simply, we must do bishop takes c7. We win this knight that gets exchanged. And now, when it's captured with the queen, we simply enter with knight e5. Spectacular bombshell. And now, simply, the knight on d7 can't be defended. It's pinned, defended by the queen. That's not enough. Whatever they do, no matter how much they place the rook, which would be the best move in the position, here we're going to win material. At the very least, we're going to win the exchange with the move bishop takes d7. Knight takes d7 would also work. They must capture with the rook, and we would simply continue with knight takes d7, queen takes d7, and we've placed ourselves in a position with an exchange up, which is an exchange, well, having a rook in exchange for a minor piece, be it a bishop or a knight. An extremely comfortable game from now on. I have to warn you about one thing. There's only one way to prevent our Joba system attack, which you already know what it is. Our attack is based on coordinating our bishop and our knight in such a way that they both point to the c7 square and create extreme problems, as we've just seen, for our opponent. There's only one way to prevent. Well, don't worry, because I'm going to show you how to play if they play a 6, which is the only way to prevent our knight from ending up on b5. But friends, you shouldn't worry about this at all, because we're going to continue playing in a completely normal and effective way. We're going to play e3. It's very simple, don't worry. Suitable for everyone, even for the elite. There are elite players who play this system, and more are doing so. e3. All right, here they can follow up with many moves. The most logical one would perhaps be e6, right? To develop their bishop, play c5. This would be the most logical. How will we continue? With knight f3. Maybe here, if you have more than 2300 elo, let's say 2200, 2300, I'd say the finest move is a3, okay? But for the rest of us mortals who have 2100, 2000, or even much less, 1500, the best would undoubtedly be knight f3, which offers the best opportunities for us. Most used moves, bishop e7, bishop d6, c5. If they play c bishop d6, there's something very important you should know. Whenever these two bishops face each other, you shouldn't worry about doubling pawns. Simply, we can play bishop d3, and if they capture, now these two pawns are building the perfect square for our knight. And whenever they trade it for another knight, we'll place this pawn here and have an incredible position. So you should never worry. If they play bishop d6, you can leave this bishop here and develop the other pieces. Simple, right? If they play bishop e7, it's a pretty slow move because at some point they'll have to play c5, and this way they'll lose a tempo. So if they play bishop e7, it'll be the same as if they play c5 but with an extra tempo. Perfect. So let's see what happens if they play c5, which is what we'll encounter in most games, because it's the only move that allows black a bit of counterplay. Where would we love to have this bishop? On d3, but we can't. It's a typical detail of the London systems, Kali system. Why can't our bishop on d3, which is doing great, be placed now? Because they play c4, right? And they force us to retreat. So, well, don't worry because we're going to apply a little trick to be able to develop the bishop on d3. As simple as first capturing a pawn that can advance, and now we play the bishop to d3. It's that simple, right? Super simple. Very well. What have we achieved with this position? Well, for now, we have four pieces developed. Our opponent, just two. We're going to castle on the next move, and we have a super comfortable game. Our opponent hasn't fallen for any tricks. They could continue developing normally, but even if they haven't fallen for any tricks, I'm going to show you the plan for those games that don't have little tricks, because our plan is simply, after castling, and once we have castled and all pieces are developed, to try to break with e4. This is going to be a key move. The idea is that if they capture, we're going to capture with the knight. I'll show you. We capture with the knight, and we have a frankly good position. We're threatening knight takes knight, queen takes, and watch out for what we're threatening. For example, if we threaten the bishop and it moves, knight takes knight almost wins the game, because after queen takes, we trap our opponent's queen. This queen can't go anywhere. And I assure you, that I've come across this many times. Therefore, here, if they capture this pawn, you capture with the knight. If they capture, well, you keep capturing nothing. And if not, you capture and you trap their queen. But here, what I find most when I advance is that they advance too. And of course, now what happens? Because they're threatening our knight, we could retreat it. It'll be a very good idea. I'm not going to say no, but I love. And whenever I do it, I win the game. I also I threaten your knight and you threaten mine. If you move the knight, absolutely nothing happens because I also move and attack you here, or even better, I place it on e4, attack your bishop, go on the attack here, so absolutely nothing happens. But what I find most here when we make this advance is they say, let's see, what's happening? Here they capture here, I capture here, and they get into the game. So if we get into the game of these exchanges, the only thing we've achieved is that our opponent has captured a B pawn, a pawn that we don't care about at all. In fact, now we could continue with the rook here. If they capture here, we capture here, and nothing happens. We've exchanged this B pawn, which we don't care about at all, for perhaps the most important pawn in the opponent's position. Now we're going to enter with the queen, with the knights, with the two bishops, and we're going to end up giving checkmate, right? But what I find most here is that when we capture the two knights, he's captured ours and we've captured his, they see that this exchange is favorable for us, very favorable. And what they do is queen takes f6. And if you've been paying attention to the video, you'll know what to play here. Come on, I'm gonna give you 3 seconds to think. Indeed, I've given you less, but it doesn't matter. The correct move is bishop g5, trapping the opponent's queen again. As you can see, this queen can no longer go anywhere. We've managed to trap it thanks to the strength of our two bishops. That's why the importance of developing the pieces, as I've mentioned, the bishop to d3. And since I want you to know how to play, no matter what they do, I must explain what happens, what I just mentioned now when you break on e4 if they capture this pawn, because I come across it so many times. It's not a good idea, but I come across it. So, as I say, you capture with the knight in such a way that we're threatening knight takes, queen takes, and bishop g5 winning the game. So people think, well, then I'll exchange the knight, and now I'll exchange the queen. And as you can see, well, we simply reach a super equal position where here we have no advantage at all. No, we have a spectacular advantage. The file's ours. They can't develop. This bishop can't get out anywhere. On d7, we would capture. If it comes out via b7, they'd have to move this pawn in such a way that they'd lose the knight. If they try to move the rook first, then we would capture it with the other bishop. As you can see, they can't do absolutely anything. They're immobilized. If they try to trade rooks and play rook to d8, we can trade rooks, for example, and then bring the other one over so that we're back in the same situation as before, or even leave the two rooks facing each other. We're in an extremely superior position, no matter how much they've tried to trade pieces. Fewer pieces on the board doesn't mean they're going to be safe for sure. I almost forgot a super important line, and it's one of my favorites. In the variation they play, for example, normally we play e3 and they play c5 immediately. Remember what I told you, right? We're going to jump with the knight to b5 directly. Why? Because as long as they don't stop us with the move of 6, which I assure you they'll do very few times, right? We're going to jump with the knight to b5. And here, how should they defend this play? Well, the only one they had was knight to a 6. But there's an intermediate move that's played against me a lot, and I love it when they play it. I get very happy, and I'm going to show it to you in this line. Before playing knight to a6, they often play queen to a 5 check, to which we're not going to respond queen to e2, but we're going to respond c3, simply using our system. Don't worry, this knight is well defended by the bishop. And now they do play knight to a 6, so it's the same as before, but this queen, instead of d8, is a bit more active on the a5 square. How are we going to continue? Well, now we're going to continue in the same way as always. We're going to continue with knight to f3. This knight is indeed being attacked by the queen, but it's defended by the bishop. Therefore, this knight remains intact here. But many of you are surely thinking the same thing as always. They play bishop to d7 to attack this knight with 2 pieces, and what you'd have to do now is move this knight back to a3, and it's a very bad move, right? Well, no, what we're going to do is a 4. And here, what we see is that this knight is well defended by the bishop, but at any moment they can play c4 and cut off the communication between our light squared bishop and the attacking knight. And I've come across this many times. And at first, when I didn't know how to deal with this, I really had a hard time because I thought that now I'm going to have to move this knight back here. They're going to take my pawn. They're going to attack the queen. And this is a real disaster. Well, no, what you should do here, and remember this, is it doesn't matter if they capture this knight and capture a pawn, a free pawn. We don't care. Why? Because no matter how much they take a pawn, they're going to lose too much time winning that said pawn, and we're going to gain it in development and attack. And this can end in very good ways for us. Our bishop usually wants to go to d3. We already know that. But in this case, logically, it can't go. That's why we make the quiet move bishop to e2. Very well. They've succeeded. They've gotten their way by capturing this knight with their bishop, so they win a pawn. They're forced to capture it, right? Because the queen is being attacked by our rook. And now, how are we going to continue? Well, simply with castling. And I lied to you when I said we were giving away a pawn, because we were actually giving away 2. But if they take this one, they'll lose immediately. How, chess teacher? Well, it's as easy as this. When they capture this pawn, yes, they're up 2 pawns, but they've dug their own grave. As I said, this king has stayed in the center too long. He hasn't prioritized development, and with the move queen to a4 check, we're applying great pressure and winning the game instantly. We don't care what they do or how they block the check. The only logical move here would be this one. And we're going to follow up with the move rook from f to b1 so that we're threatening the queen. We don't care where that queen goes. She really has very few options. She has to come over to this side here. And as you can see, we're gonna win the game now because the queen moved away and our real goal was to get the rook onto the 7th rank. You know, the typical saying, put a rook on the 7th and you'll win the game. In this case, most definitely. It's clear we're attacking this knight with 2 pieces. And not only that, but we're attacking queen takes knight, checkmate. Therefore, they must defend this knight without a doubt, right? Look how expensive winning 2 pawns turned out to be for them. This knight, how's it defended? With the rook, it wouldn't be possible because we'd win the other one. So the only way they have to defend this knight is with knight 6 to b8. It's the only way they have, but this doesn't help them either because all we have to do is ask ourselves, who defends this knight? The other knight? Well, I'll eliminate it with my bishop. And it's as simple as that. Bishop takes, And now, quite simply, on the next move, whatever they do, we're going to play queen takes knight, winning the game immediately, delivering a massive checkmate to our opponent. I'd love for you to put this very simple system to the test. If you liked it, please, I'm really asking you, leave a like, which helps me so much to keep recording day after day. So if you like this system, leave a like, leave whatever you want in the comments because I read them all, even if I can't answer everyone due to lack of time, obviously. But I love reading you all, and we'll see each other tomorrow, as always, in the next Chess Friends video. Goodbye.